Hello, and welcome to another episode of The Soul of Business with Blaine Bartlett. I am your host, Blaine Bartlett. Today, I am really excited for a number of reasons. One is I'm doing a do-over here right now. So I've got one of the most gracious guests that I've had in a long time. And I say that not just because he's graciously agreed to do a do-over with me because I screwed up the recording last time, but just because of who he is and how he actually approaches the way he leads his organization. Garry Ridge is the chairman and CEO of a company that I will guarantee you've heard of, WD-40. It's an amazing company. He's been with the company for 23 years?
23 years as CEO, with the company nearly 35 years.
Nearly 35, yeah. And you've taken it from multi-million dollar to billion, $3 billion company right now. So, Garry, I want to just thank you again for showing up, for being gracious enough to say yes one more time, and it's a pleasure to have you here.
Yeah, my pleasure. No, and I didn't do this. It was all the people that I work with that do it. I'm not that smart.
And that's one of the things that I like about this is, I get to talk to humble people that are doing absolutely amazing thing with some phenomenal teams. So the idea of the soul of business is, how do we keep connected as we grow an organization to that esprit, to that spark that just kind of created the company in an entrepreneur's mind to begin with. And WD-40 goes back to the 1950s when it was, literally called Rocket Chemical. 1953, it got set up. Entrepreneurs looking for a way to just kind of work with the burgeoning aerospace industry. There was a spark of interest, this research thing. Yeah. How have you kept the company connected to that, what I call the soul of the business?
Well, we were born from rocket science, so that's pretty exciting. And you're right, WD-40 was invented to stop corrosion and condensation in the umbilical cord of the Atlas space rocket. So from day one, we were creating positive, lasting memories. And, our purpose is to create positive, lasting memories by solving problems in factories, homes, and workshops around the world. So, there's nothing better than a memory. And, it would be fairly boring if we said we sell oil in a can. No, we're in the memories business.
And those of you that are listening, when you're looking at the soul of business, for me, and I didn't ask this question directly, so I'll put some words in your mouth here, but the soul of business very seldom, if ever, is inherent in what we do from a practical standpoint. It's more about the esoteric, memories. Memories. How do we package that? And that's what makes you different from other companies, is adherence to that articulation of why you exist.
Yeah, and I think also, again, imagine a place where you go to work every day. You make a contribution to something bigger than yourself. You learn something new. You're protected and set free by a compelling set of values, and you go home happy. Happy people create happy families create happy communities, and happy communities create a happy world. So, we think about our purpose. We call ourselves a tribe, not a team. So what does that mean? It's a group of people who come together to protect and feed each other. So there's more to what we do and how we do it than just what's in the can, which is a great can. It's about creating an environment where people can step into the best version of their personal self every day and feel good about it.
You and I have a mutual friend in common, Ken Blanchard, and you co-wrote a book with him, Helping People Win at Work, a business philosophy called Don't Mark My Paper, Help Me Get an A. And there's actually techniques in that book about how to go about doing what you were just describing, creating a tribe, the care and feeding of this collective, so people are happy. I want to unbundle that a little bit if we could. First of all, what compelled you to write it? And then secondly, how did you and Ken actually put that thing together so that it was digestible?
Yeah, sure. So when I was given the privilege to lead as CEO back in 1997, I looked around and I said, how do we create an enduring culture? How do we create an enduring business over time? And it really is all about the will of the people. How do you have a passion in the organization? So I looked around and I went back to school. I went to the University of San Diego. I did a master's degree in leadership, and Ken was my professor. And the program is a joint program between the Ken Blanchard companies and University of San Diego. And that's where I was really introduced to the real essence of what Ken is, which is servant leadership. Mm-hmm. So, I bought into that, and we started to implement some of the servant leadership philosophy. It's not about your ego, it's about your empathy, all of these things. In one of the classes, Ken was talking about when he was a professor, and he said, I used to get in trouble all the time from the academic staff because I would hand out the final paper for the class at the beginning of the class. And they'd say, "What the hell are you doing, Blanchard, giving them the final paper?" He said, "Not only am I giving them the final paper, but we're going to spend the next however many weeks together learning the answers." And that to me that really struck a note with me, because I looked around organizations and they had antiquated, impractical review systems that really were driven by having a meeting with someone at the end of the year and doing nothing along the way to help that people, really achieve. So we said, life is not about some, stupid distribution system. It's about helping people get A's. And the first part of that is, what does an A look like? So, our book is based on really having an understanding of, what do you expect from me? What do I expect from you? How do we then, make sure that we're meeting each other's expectations? And me as your leader, and at our company, we don't have managers, they're coaches. So my job as the coach is to help you play your best game. So what does a coach do? A coach spends a lot of time on the sideline, a lot of time in the locker room, never running on the field, in particular, never going to the podium to pick up the prize.
Yeah, I love that. You kind of triggered a memory. I did a lot of work in the AT&T, or the old AT&T system, after divestiture. And I remember working with one of the baby bells a number of years into that work that I was doing. And we were talking about, and it was in a leadership development program that I was running with them. And we were talking about performance reviews. And this particular group that we had was essentially linemen. The guys that would go out and string the lines and that kind of stuff. And this was up in the northeast part of the U.S. I think it was Minnesota or Michigan. I forget which one of the baby bells it was. But this gruff foreman, cigar chomping foreman, he says, "I know about these performance reviews." He said, "If it's a bad one, I'll take them out into the car and I don't turn the heater on, so we can make it a short one and we get out of there." Really?
Yeah.
So how's your retention working? And he says, "Oh, we just burn through these people."
Yeah, that's a shame.
Oh, well, I mean, it really was. If it wasn't, so unfortunate, it would have been funny. But,
yeah, exactly.
Because
again,
what they were dealing with.
Again, our job is to, my job as the coach is to, look for the opportunities to help the person I'm coaching, be successful. What roadblocks are, a typical conversation, and we have these conversations on an ongoing basis, at least every 90 days, is what roadblocks are getting in your way, Blaine? What's stopping you from getting there? Is it, how can I help you, achieve? Now, if there's areas where there's obvious performance issues, well, that's when you've got to do some redirection. And you've got to be brave enough to do that. And unfortunately, A lot of leaders aren't brave enough to do that. When they go into a conversation to redirect people, they're actually more uncomfortable than the person they want to redirect. But what I've learned over time is the more you love and care about someone, the more important that conversation is. So if our job here is to help people get A's, then the coach has to be brave enough to have that conversation, redirection, encouragement, and they've got to do it in a compassionate, empathetic, not ego-driven way.
That's that ego-driven way, and the aversion to having that difficult conversation. It's kind of embedded in the I think the archaic notion that a leader is supposed to have all the answers all the time. And you've got a wonderful way of describing how you actually position yourself as the CEO, the formal leader in the company. Probably, yeah. So I'll just let you voice it because you do a far better job with it than I do.
So I'll give you my official introduction line. G'day, I'm Garry Ridge, the consciously incompetent, probably wrong, and roughly right chairman and CEO of WD-40 Company. And I have many scar tissues to prove that I'm probably wrong and roughly right.
And roughly right. And it's that reliance on your gut. Because you don't get to be CEO of a multi-billion-dollar company that has offices, or actually a presence in 176 countries, I believe.
Correct.
If you're not roughly right a large majority of the time. But you do this, and this is what I'm so intrigued with about what you've done with WD-40, Garry, is it's not you. I mean, you really come back to the team over and over and over again. I'm curious about how you've developed your senior leadership talent, because your retention is pretty high. I mean, and we're going to move into a conversation about engagement here in just a minute. But yeah, you've got people that have been with you for decades. How have you developed? I'm going to just use the placeholder of leadership, because it's not, leadership doesn't just reside with you in the C-suite. In my conversations with you, my experience is, and my guess is, it resides throughout the body of the organization.
Sure.
Yeah. How have you accomplished that? So it's not just role specific.
Well, I guess it comes down to, firstly, are we as a leadership group dedicated to our people? Do we absolutely agree, zero tolerance, that it's all about the people? If an organization has a great strategy, let's take the strategy to Harvard and have them, score it out of 100, and comes back and you get 70 out of 100. But the will of the people is low, like 10 out of 100. 10 times 70 is 700. Most strategies are probably wrong and roughly right. So let's score at 50. But if you have the will of the people at 90 times 50 is 4,500. So the first thing is, are we committed to the fact that we will be successful, not because of our egos personally, but because we are empowering and developing our people, number one. Number two, do you have a clear purpose? And have we all bought into that purpose? I've shared our purpose. Number three, do you have a compelling set of values that not only protect people, but set them free? Allow them to make their decisions. Allow them to do what they need to do without, as Ken Blanchard would say, quacking up the hierarchy. Quack, 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 where's my boss? Quack, quack, quack. And then you get to what Ken calls the grand mallard. Quack, quack, quack. That's the guy with the ego. And then finally, do we embrace the fact that we want to have low fear in the organization? And most fear is linked to the fear of failure. So we don't make mistakes at WD-40 Company. We've never made a mistake in our life. What we have are learning moments. Mm-hmm. And a learning moment is a positive or negative outcome of any situation that has to be openly and freely shared with all people. And we've had plenty of them. But it means people, so it's a matter of taking all of those elements in our leadership team and saying, okay, we sign up, zero tolerance, that's what we're here for. So that's basically, the way we've approached it.
Now, you're talking about walking the walk, not just walking the talk, not just talking the talk. There's this thing. Dan Pink has got a notion around engagement. It's really about intrinsic motivation. How do you, instead of carrot and stick, if you can organize around autonomy, purpose, and mastery, people's desire to master something in their lives. My guess would be, and again, push back on me on this, but this is essentially the work ethos within the WD-40 or community, the team, your whole set. Mastery, do what you're doing and do it well. Autonomy, better than I. I mean, it's kind of like you're on the line. You know how to make this thing happen. You know what resources are needed, and then continuing to come back to purpose, which is where you spoke about the values. How hard has it been? Because I'm familiar with manufacturing companies, and even though rocket science is a part of this, most people, or many people, I won't say most people, many people think that a manufacturing type organization, you're not going to get people that are stepping up to that bar that way. How have you made that possible for people to say, I'm in, and I mean I'm really in? Because again, from an engagement and retention standpoint, not just at the managerial or the coach level, you've got people that throughout the organization stay with the organization because it's one of the best places in the world to work.
Well, it comes back again to our purpose and talking about, we're not just making oil in a can, we're creating positive, lasting memories. So, and then being able to share those memories, share those accomplishments, show how we're making life better. Our just cause, just simple things, our just cause to make life better at home and at work. So we make life better at home for our tribe members, and at work for our tribe members, and at home for the people who use our products, and at work for the people who use our products. And we talk about it, and we're storytellers, we're sharing the many pieces of feedback we get on how we're actually making someone's life better. Because at the end of the day, that's what it's about. It's about making life better.
We're going to take a real quick break here. When we come back, I want to look at that making life better through the lens of the soul of the business and really what's the purpose of business. Mm-hmm. So we'll be right back talking with Garry Ridge, CEO and chairman of WD-40. I want to thank you for listening. I want to also invite you right now to go to blainebartlett.com. And on that site, which is my personal website, you'll see services up on the top menu. I'd like you to click on Leadership Mastermind. Now, why I want you to do that is we have structured a mastermind program that is very unusual and it is very powerful. And by going onto that site and clicking that link, you'll be taken to a landing page that is an invitation to join this mastermind. It's a 52-week long exploration of what it takes to be a highly effective leader in today's fast-changing environment. You won't regret it. And if you've been liking what you've been listening to on these Soul of Business podcasts, how does one become a leader that can keep connection to the soul of business? That's what we look at. That's what we're about in this mastermind program. So again, go to blainebartlett.com and click on the services link, and there you'll find the link to the Leadership Mastermind program. Look forward to seeing you there. Thanks for listening to this little commercial, and now back to our show. Welcome back. Garry, I want to just pick up where we kind of left off. The idea of making life better. I've got a personal bias that says that the purpose of business is not to make money. If you're making money, you're probably going to be doing something right in this way. And that way is if you're actually making life better for the people that are consuming your product or your service. They'll be the door, they'll literally be the path to your door. And so you were talking about that just before our break here. Making life better at home and at work. Your employee engagement scores, and this is where I want to just kind of, because again, as a quote unquote manufacturing company, oil in a can, so to speak, to have the kinds of engagement scores that you have, employee engagement, emotional engagement. Gallup does, and for those of you that are listening here, Gallup does a survey every year, and I've been doing it for 20 some odd years that I'm familiar with. The average disengagement score globally is about 87 to 92%. It just kind of varies about, in that threshold. And companies around the world spend about $43 billion annually on leadership development work to move the dial on that, or to move the needle on that dial. They want to get more employee engagement. You have done something very unique, I think. Starbucks also, I spent 5 years working with Starbucks, and they've got some very high engagement scores as well. Howard's done an amazing job there. What have you done that, and I think it's kind of in some of the conversation we've had here, but specifically, can you point to 2 or 3 things that you've done with your tribe that encourages people to emotionally engage with what they're doing on a daily basis?
Aristotle was born in 384 BC, and Aristotle said, pleasure in the job puts perfection in the work. And profit is the applause of people doing great work. So it's pretty simple to us, is that our job is to create that environment where people actually enjoy doing what they're doing because they're treated with respect and dignity. There's 4 pillars: care, candor, accountability, and responsibility. If you work for a WD-40 company, we care about you. Our ego doesn't eat our empathy. Our empathy eats our ego. Our role is to help you have the best life you can possibly have. Now, it's simple. It's not easy, but it's okay. The second one is candor. No lying, no faking, no hiding. I believe most people don't lie. I believe in organizations, people fake and hide. Why? Because of fear. They're afraid of not being recognized for what they're doing. Ken Blanchard often says it's a shame the only reason people know they're doing a good job is because no one yelled at them today. But we all like to belong. Maslow's hierarchy to self-actualization. The first 2 rungs of those that is, am I safe and will I eat? The third one is loving or belonging. Or don't use the word love in business. My goodness, that would be so bad. But we love our people. Simon Sinek says, leadership is not about being in charge. It's about taking care of people in your charge. Bob Chapman from Barry Weinmiller says, everybody who walks in the door is someone's precious child. We say everyone that walks in the door is someone's precious child, husband, wife, auntie, uncle, cousin, brother, sister, whatever. So, it's about really having that care. So care, candor, accountability. People want to feel like they accomplish. So let's be very clear what we're going to hold each other accountable for, and let's celebrate. Let's really be proud of our achievement. And then finally, responsibility. We have a responsibility to each other in the tribe as a group of people who come together to protect and feed each other. So we have to live up to that, which is really important. And that's how we get a 93% employee engagement. 98% of our people globally say they love to tell people they work at WD-40 company. And 97% say something that I think is really cool. They say they actually trust their coach or respect their coach, which is their boss. Most people leave organizations because they hate their boss. Oh, and one other thing, 98% of them are excited about the future.
Go to the bank with that one. McKinsey did a survey, this goes back, I think 3-4 years ago, self-rated survey, leaders around the world. Are they inspiring and are they trusted? Mm-hmm. And self-reported, they said, and I think it was right in the neighborhood of 72% said, yes, I'm an inspiring leader. My people trust me. Gallup did the same sort of thing. It was absolutely reversed. Absolutely reversed. Yeah. So this is where authenticity starts to be a real interesting conversation. you quoted Aristotle, and go to the Greek Delphi, know thyself. And that's a really good prescription for effective leadership. Know thyself first.
I just want to share you with a lovely practice that links to that is,
yes.
Marshall Goldsmith, who wrote the book, What Got You Here Won't Get You There, and I'm in his 100 coaches group. One of the things that he shared some time ago is this question. And I think all leaders should ask themselves this question. Am I being the person I want to be right now? Because as a leader, you will be someone else. And then ask yourself, what do I want to be? Now, I have a little notebook here that I use, and I have that on the front of my notebook. And it says, so what do I want to be? And I have to keep reminding myself of this. I want to be caring. I want to be empathetic. I want to be reasonable. I want to be a listener. I want to be fact-based. I want to be balanced. And I want to be a curious learner. And I look at that list, I don't know how many times a day, because I'm human. If I don't remind myself of who I want to be, the environment will attract me to be something else. And once I realize that I'm being the person I don't want to be, it's probably too late, because I don't want to be that other person. I want to be this person.
Yeah, you're talking about awareness, you're talking about noticing, and you're talking about a discipline, a certain kind of discipline that positions you as a leader to actually excel. And I made a distinction not too long ago in some of the work that I was doing with a program I put together, that most, and I believe that this is true, most people approach life in the same way that an amateur would approach life, doing just enough to get by. They do just enough so that they don't get called out. They do just enough so that they're not embarrassed. A professional, on the other hand, will do whatever it takes to excel, not be perfect. Big difference between that, to excel. And how do they do that? Well, they have these little reminders. They have ways that they keep themselves trued up. And that's inculcated in the values of the organization as well. In my experience, in organizations that are truly excelling, have explicit values that aren't just artwork on the wall.
Right. That's why we have ours, so that people can rely on those. We say you can make any decision you want to make in the company at any level you want, as long as you use our values as your guideposts.
Can you talk about that a little bit? Because one of our previous conversations, you were really adamant about this, and I love the way that these actually were done in practice. Values in practice, as opposed to values being just artwork.
Well, values should be written on the most coffee-stained piece of paper. Actually, ours are embedded in our tribal talent development system. So every 90 days, we ask people to tell us how they lived our values. So we only have two measures. You either live or you visit. And we don't want a lot of visitors. We want people who live them. And they're hierarchical. The number one value is we value doing the right thing. Number two is we value creating positive, lasting memories in all our relationships. Number three is we value making it better than it is today. The sixth value is we value sustaining the WD-40 economy, which as a public company, you might think our first value should be we value making profit. But if we live these values every day, the sixth one will be automatic. It'll happen. So, another one is we value succeeding as a tribe while excelling as individuals. So again, and each one of these values has a paragraph that describes what that really means, because doing the right thing in the mind of someone in Europe or China or Australia or the US or Latin America may be different than somewhere else. So we actually describe what it means. What is it to us? This is what doing the right thing is to us. Yeah.
It opens up a conversation. And this is what I was particularly hoping that we would land on here. I remember when I was, I led a major chunk of Nokia's global leadership development initiative back in the late 90s, early 2000s. And I was struck by the fact, and this was early on in my tenure with them, every meeting, and I cannot think of a meeting where this did not occur. Every meeting, if there was a decision to be made, it was vetted through the lens of the values. Beginning, and then was hierarchical. Respect for the individual, was the number one. Be humble. That was a very unique Finnish value. I mean, that came into play too. And to your point, they were starting to globally expand in the mid 90s. They didn't necessarily have the footprint at all that they had eventually by the early 2000s. So China was different in terms of respect for the individual than a German would be.
Right.
It wasn't a rubber stamp, one size fits all. It was an invitation to have a conversation about how does this actually play out in real life. And it was wonderful.
I can give you a beautiful example of that. So our number 2 value is we value creating positive, lasting memories in all of our relationships. And here's how you can put a value into action. So some time back, we were having a meeting somewhere, and there was someone in the room that was not creating positive, lasting memories, a dear, loved tribe member that was having a really bad morning. So at the end of the conversation, I said to this person, hey, let's go for a walk. So we walked out into the parking lot, and I looked under a car and in a trash can and behind a tree. And the person said, what the hell are you doing? I said, the person I know and love was not in that room today. You weren't creating positive, lasting memories. What's on your mind? What's on your mind? And we had a beautiful coaching conversation. There were some things that had happened that day that weren't good. We reminded ourselves that, that's why our values were there. That person went back in and approached a couple of people that were at that meeting and said, hey, sorry, having a bad morning. That's not me. I didn't mean to do that. Fine. The next morning, I observed people that were in that meeting were going to that person and saying, are you okay today? Is there anything I can do for you? Is everything all right? I want to make sure you're okay. Now, if we wouldn't have had that value, how would we have approached that meeting? Number one, we may not have done anything about it. We may have just let it go. So that toxin, that emotional toxin, would have continued to, spread itself around the organization for the whole day.
Yeah.
Or we would not have had a platform to be able to approach it in a meaningful way that we both agreed on, which was so important. That's values in action.
That's values in action. And it permeates through the entire organization. It is not an accident that you have a 93% emotional engagement score, quote unquote. We're scoring things all the time. But that translates into fungible results. I mean, it really is. I mean, turnover, both in terms of revenue, but also in terms of no turnover in staff and employee groups, your tribe. Garry, I love talking with you. I could go on forever with this, and I want to be respectful of your time. Folks, we've been listening to Garry Ridge, CEO and chairman of WD-40 companies. How are you leaving it better than you found it? You've been there for 35 years. How are you leaving it better than you found it?
Well, I'm building an enduring company that we can hand on to others. We're playing the infinite game. It's all about the next step. So, I think that the difference we've made here to help people's lives be better will be continued, because we will continue to help people go home happy. And that's how I would like to leave here eventually. Not that I'm planning on going anywhere tomorrow, but eventually. We have a responsibility as leaders. We can change the world. We really can. We have more influence than anybody else. Governments can't do it anymore. We can do it. And we need to think about that as leaders. We can change the world.
Yeah. The future of business is making the future its business.
There you go. I love that.
So on that note, you've been listening to The Soul of Business with Blaine Bartlett. Guest today, the incredible, probably wrong,
roughly right,
chairman and CEO of the WD-40 companies, Garry Ridge. Tune in on the next episode. And again, I want to thank you for listening, and check out my website, blainebartlett.com. There's stuff on there that you're going to enjoy digging into. So we'll see you on the next iteration, folks. Take care. Bye.